Pirate, fusing Senju Hashirama power to dominate. Episode 31, What? Kapu glanced at the bottle on the table, and after glancing at the bottle that Zefa and Tongdi had left on the ground, his eyes moved. He looked at Luo Lei, and said solemnly, I, Kapu, want to take medicine. Take it, it's medicine. Listen to this sentence. Luo Lei was also very crisp, and casually threw the teacup on the table over. Nimas, who are you when you are? This is super divine water, giving peach rabbits, because peach rabbits still have use value. But why give you Kapu? You are a lieutenant general in the naval headquarters, and even a hero in the navy, but it's none of my business. Moreover, there are only 10 bottles of super god water. 6 bottles have been used, and only 4 are left. Scarce things are precious. Even if you want it, you have to exchange it for something equivalent. You little boy, it's too hard to hit the elderly. Looking at the teacup that Lori had thrown over, Karp looked a little embarrassed, grinned, and reached out and put the teacup on the table. What else can I say? Cap did not expect that Luo Lei would not give him a little face. In fact, his overlord color domineering spirit had already awakened, and he wanted the so-called magic medicine for his grandson Luffy. Now it seems, his grandson Luffy was unblessed. Zefa, have you awakened the domineering spirit of the overlord? At this time, Staff Officer Crane ignored the somewhat impulsive Kapu and asked with some curiosity. Swish. Swish. The voice has not fallen. People such as Sengoku, Green Pheasant, Yellow Ape, and Red Dog all looked at Zefa with puzzled eyes. Although their smell and domineering spirit have been perceived, but I still want to hear Zefa admit it personally. After all, taking medicine will awaken the domineering spirit of the overlord, and it can also enhance the strength, but it is unheard of, never seen before. Ha, that's right. In the face of everyone's eyes, Zefa laughed proudly, nodded his head crisply, and said pointedly, I have accepted a good student, and I am really fortunate to have 3 lives. The speaker has no intention, the listener is intentional. Suddenly, the corners of the mouths of the pheasant, the yellow ape, the red dog, the T-dolphin and others twitched slightly. What does it mean? Receiving Luo Lei as a student is 3 lifetimes lucky, then our 3 generals are also your students, so aren't you unhappy in your 3rd life? Can't say that. Sure enough, the next moment, a wisp of unhappiness appeared on the yellow ape's lewd cheeks, and with a cold snort, it disappeared into a golden light in the conference room. He swears, I will never take the initiative to appear in front of Teacher Zefa again. Oh hee, with a new person, forget the old person. Did Teacher Zefa forget that he was also one of his most proud students? It's getting interesting. The red dog looked a little gloomy, and after taking a deep look at Luo Lei, he would not go away. He came just to make sure, and now that he had the answer, it was time to leave, so as not to be embarrassed by staying for a long time. As for the pheasant, relative to red dogs and yellow apes, but I didn't think about it so much, and I took the initiative to laugh a few times, which invisibly resolved the embarrassment. Good. See, Zefa admits it. Staff Officer Tsuru and Sengoku glanced at each other. Immediately, Staff Officer Crane looked unchanged, and only then did he take the initiative to open his mouth. We just came to check the source of the overlord's domineering spirit, and since we already know the cause and effect of the matter, let's leave first. Bang. Bang. After saying this, Staff Officer Crane, Sengoku, Green Pheasant, Kapu, and others walked out of the conference room without looking back. They were not stupid, as could be seen from Karp's embarrassment, that Raleigh did not welcome them, and since that was the case, it was better to leave early, so as not to make everyone unhappy. And from start to finish, Admiral's warring states did not speak. On the surface there is nothing, but in fact, Sengoku's heart was also shocked, and there were too many secrets in this Lieutenant General Luo Lei's body, which shocked him at any time. Absolutely, there is also a vignette in it. That is, the T-dolphin's eyes have been falling on the peach rabbit's body after coming in, and the peach rabbit has not looked at him. You guys, after the Sengoku and the others left, Zefa sat slowly in a chair and said somewhat helplessly, the good villain is also a high-ranking member of the Navy, can't you give him a little face? Face depends on strength, not on giving it to others. Luo Lei looked unchanged and said softly, we pirate guerrillas and the Navy have an essential difference. Rather than relying on the naval headquarters, it is better for us to play the prestige of the pirate guerrillas ourselves. So, we, the pirate guerrillas, go to sea tomorrow. Could it be too soon? Ein frowned and said subconsciously, there are more than 1,000 Navy soldiers waiting for the interview review. Those 230 elite soldiers of the Navy are enough. Luo Lei grinned, took a deep breath, and said, we, the pirate guerrillas, are taking the high-end combat power route, and the 230 elite soldiers of the Navy who are now recruited are specially recruited to clean up the mess, which is enough. All right. After more than 2 months of cultivation, Luo Lei's own strength improved rapidly, and coupled with the discomfort of staying at the naval headquarters, he did not stop and left the naval headquarters. But Ein, listen to lore. In the next instant, just as Ein was still trying to say something, Zefa solemnly interrupted her, saying, Luo Lei is right, the pirate guerrillas can only win the respect of others by fighting. Everything is virtual, only strength is the last word. All right. I nodded sadly, then I'll go and get ready. Seeing that both Teacher Zefa and Lord Rahl had decided, Ben sensed the body that had achieved the transformation and couldn't help but shake his fist. Cool, Emperor Tong's face was excited, finally it's time to go to sea. Somehow, he felt the lollipop in his hand getting more and more fragrant. Going to sea? Peach Rabbit is a little dazed, however, she quickly made up her mind to perform well in the pirate guerrillas. Episode 32. The next day, early in the morning, the front of the naval headquarters fortress, that huge harbor docked a large naval warship wrapped in mechs. Different from the traditional Navy high-level warships, this large mech warship, from a distance, is like a creeping beast, suspended on the sea. Even if it is a glance, the invisible momentum is shocking. As for the specific attack weapons, they cannot be seen outside. Rao was so, but also attracted a large number of Navy headquarters soldiers onlookers. No way. Just early this morning, Lieutenant General Rowley announced that the pirate guerrillas were going to sea. This is undoubtedly the detonation of the entire naval headquarters. You know, in the past 2 months, the pirate guerrillas in the naval headquarters is extremely popular, coupled with the addition of Peach Rabbits, but also let the fame go to a new level. Right now, it's finally time to go to sea. The only unhappy thing may be that the more than 1,000 Navy soldiers who have signed up and are still waiting for the interview review. Originally, they all had hope of joining the pirate guerrillas, but early in the morning, the news that the pirate guerrillas had stopped recruiting still made them uncomfortable for a while. Right now, on the deck of a large mech warship, some of the pirate guerrilla navies are very busy carrying various supplies in preparation for the upcoming departure. There are also some elite soldiers of the Navy. It was the beginning of the 3x3 boarding of the mech warship. Directly in front of the deck, Lore, Zefa, Peach Rabbit, Ein, Binz, and Emperor Tong were standing on the deck, looking at the majestic naval headquarters. After more than 2 months of reconstruction, the naval headquarters has returned to its original solemn, majestic, and magnificent appearance. The only difference, perhaps, is that the newly established pirate guerrilla group, from scratch, is finally going to sea. Master, the interior of this mech warship, but specially modified by me, hides the I-19 plasma cannon in the bow and stern, which can fire shotgun-charged state-ion particles, he said. Under a piece of mech on the right side of the ship, there is a sharp elongated wrist-bladed chain lightsaber, about 30 meters long, which can cut anything at close range. There is also the fact that the entire mech warship can be suspended in midair and act as a mech ship. And after boarding the giant mech warship, Emperor Tong began to introduce his own transformation of the warship as if he wanted to ask for credit. Listening to Zefa, Ein, Peach Rabbit, Binz is stunned, looking at the giant mech warship at his feet. It is a look of disbelief. Am I mistaken? This giant mech warship has been transformed so terrible by Emperor Tong. If it weren't for the fact that the Pluto King, one of the 3 ancient weapons, had not yet appeared, several people would have thought that Emperor Tong had built a Pluto King. Yet, if it is really transformed into what Emperor Tong said, the legendary Pluto King may not have their giant mech warship. Think about it, there are some terrible. Emperor Tong, Mech Storm Crimson, can you make it? Listen to these words. Luo Lei seemed to think of something, and said it with a smile. A few days ago, he gave the design drawings of the Storm Crimson mech in the Pacific Rim to Emperor Tong, and he was surprised by Emperor Tong, as if he did not expect that someone had actually created such a terrible mech. Although just drawings, but Emperor Tong can imagine, once the Storm Crimson mech is created, how terrifying it will be. Emperor Tong smiled and said, the technique of the Storm Crimson mech is not very complicated. I have eaten it all, unfortunately. There was so much material I needed, and I still needed some time. If you can find me a top shipyard to cooperate with me, Storm Crimson mech, to manufacture, that is a matter of minutes. Okay, Luo Lei smiled, and Yin said lightly, when there is time, let's go to the capital of 7 waters. It's almost time to go. At this time, Zefa, who had never spoken before, took a deep breath and said with a sigh, this time I left the Navy headquarters, I don't know when I will be able to come back. Yeah. Luo Lei nodded and said with a little emotion, I hope that one day in the future, we pirate guerrillas will be able to overlook the whole sea. Let's go. Zefa must have looked at it, clenched his fists, and said, there will be such a day. There will definitely be a day like that. Nearby, the blue-haired shawl-clad Ein nodded resolutely. Overlooking the whole sea? Peach Rabbit took a deep look at the naval headquarters, and a strange look flashed on his face. Rumble. Eventually, half an hour later, in the midst of a deafening roar, the giant mech warship slowly sailed away from the huge harbor of the Navy headquarters. Gone? Looking at the departing mech warships, the countless naval soldiers of the naval headquarters were a little distracted, and a very small number of navies still showed their longing. And on the highest level of the naval headquarters fortress, phew! The Warring States Marshal, who was originally working on the document, frowned, couldn't help but stop, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. This pirate guerrilla group was finally gone. Next, it is time for the Navy headquarters to get on track. Teacher Zefa, gone. The three major admirals of the Navy, the pheasant, the yellow ape, and the red dog, all sensed it in no particular order, among which the pheasant did not have anything, but the yellow ape and the red dog smiled coldly. The pirate guerrillas attacked this time, afraid that they would not be beaten by the sea. The pirate guerrillas are gone. Haha, the sea is getting more and more interesting. Suru's staff officer's office, Kapu, who was eating a snack, and staff officer Crane, who was drinking tea, couldn't help but smile. There is nothing to say, with Luo Lei's strength, as long as the pirate guerrillas do not provoke the four emperors of the New World, they can definitely break through some prestige. Episode 33, at the end of 1516 in the sea calendar. Later, the pirate guerrillas that shook the whole sea officially left the naval headquarters. However, no one will know that this time the pirate guerrillas attacked. The whole sea will set off terrifying waves. 8 days later, a giant mech warship appears in the foggy Devil's Triangle. This sea is so weird. As soon as he entered the Devil's Triangle Sea, Zefa in front of the deck couldn't help but sigh. If Emperor Tong hadn't transformed the warship, we were afraid that it wouldn't be difficult to move. That's right. Listen to this sentence. Binz nodded solemnly and said, the climate in the Devil's Triangle is too special, and the magnetic field is also very strange. As soon as the ordinary pirate ship comes in, it will be like a headless fly, disoriented. Rest assured, it's all right. Emperor Tong said confidently, as long as we encounter a living person, our mech warship will automatically sound an alarm. What about encountering dead people? Peach Rabbit raised an eyebrow and subconsciously inquired. All right. After leaving the naval headquarters, Peach Rabbit only learned that Luo Lei and Zefa teacher's first target. I actually wanted to kill a 7 Martial Seas to warm up, so I came to the Devil's Triangle Sea to find Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas. As for the reason, the first is because the weight of the 7 Martial Seas is heavy and famous, and after killing, it makes a big news, which can quickly beat the reputation of the pirate guerrillas out. The second is to plunder a little material. If a dead person is not perceived, he can only see one killing the other. When Emperor Tong heard this, he shrugged his shoulders and said, anyway, according to the existing information, there seem to be some zombies and skeletons in this sea. Just be careful. How much do we have left? Lori stood next to him, clasping his hands to his chest and glancing at the fog around him before gesturing to Ein. Thanks to Emperor Tong's space container, it can last for more than a month. Ein thought for a moment before he said a word. At present, on the mech warship, the most consumed food is undoubtedly the more than 200 elite soldiers of the Navy, but with the space container of the Tong Emperor, everything is a small meaning. Enough is enough. Luo Lei nodded before ordering Binz, since you have reached the Devil's Triangle, don't care about the direction of the recorder, we will go straight inside, and we will always encounter the terrifying 3-masted sailboat. Understood. The voice has not fallen. Binz went to the control room to deliver the instructions. So, in such a situation, the giant mech warship began to wander madly in the Devil's Triangle. At first, there was nothing to be gained, but the closer you get to the center of the Devil's Triangle, you start to encounter some broken pirate ships, some broken boats, and a few skeletons or lifeless zombies. For this weak skeleton and zombie, Luo Lei and the others did not even move their hands, and let the crew of the pirate guerrilla team solve it. Unconsciously, another 3 days passed. Airplanes. Suddenly, without any warning, the giant mech warship sounded an alarm. There is a situation. Tong Di, who was resting in the cabin, his eyes moved, holding a lollipop, and a flash appeared on the deck. At the same time, Ein, Peach Rabbit, Zefa, and Lore appeared on the deck in no particular order, and the crew of the pirate guerrilla quickly entered a state of battle. That is? It's so big. It seems to be still moving. Accompanied by a series of exclamations, only to see in front of the giant mech warship, at some point, a gigantic black shadow appeared. In the distance, this dark shadow was much larger than any mech warship, like a small moving island, standing above the mist-shrouded sea. This should be a terrifying 3-masted sailboat. Peach Rabbit's expression was somewhat dignified, and he said in a deep voice, Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas, should be inside. Good, good. Zefa's somewhat bored look was swept away, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of curvature and a smile, and he sighed. Sure enough, it is a terrifying three-masted sailing ship known as the world's largest sea thief ship. Are we going to go straight in? As the distance drew closer, looking at the terrifying three-masted sailboat's huge door like a human mouth, and the eerie castle inside, I couldn't help but shiver. No. Lori said calmly, now that you've found the terror three-masted sailboat, let's give Moonlight Moria a chance to get off the horse. Emperor Tong, it's up to you. No problem, host. Syllable. The voice has not fallen. Emperor Tong stretched out his hand and gestured. Boom. In the next instant, a piercing sound sounded, only to see a huge black and dark gun port suddenly appear directly in front of the giant mech warship. I-19 plasma cannon fire. Looking at this unremarkable cannon muzzle, a wisp of excitement appeared on Emperor Tong's childish cheeks, and after waiting for so long, his high-tech weapon was finally going to shine. So, in the next instant, inside the muzzle of the cannon appeared a palpitating wave of energy. Swish. A cracking sound sounded. Suddenly, the unremarkable muzzle of the gun spewed out a plasma shock wave that seemed to penetrate the heavens and the earth, whereas, as the shock wave swept out, the dazzling light seemed to penetrate the fog, revealing the true face of the terrifying three-masted sailboat. Boom. Eventually, when the plasma shock wave rampage crashes into the terrifying mask, after that, a deafening roar rang out, and a powerful blast shock wave caused the terrifying three-masted sailing ship to vibrate several times, setting off a scalp-tingling energy shock wave, causing the sea to begin to tremble slightly. Episode 34, and the picture turns. Before the I-19 plasma cannon fired, terror three-masted sailboat. The central area is within a castle. I saw that he was huge, with a fiery haircut, looked like a demon, and had 2 horns on his forehead, one of the 7 Marshalseas under the king, and his look was somewhat gloomy. Have the pirate guerrillas arrived? Soon, Moonlight Moria rubbed her head and sat up half of her body. In fact, after the pirate guerrillas entered the Devil's Triangle, Moonlight Moria's men found out. I thought the pirate guerrillas were just simply passing by, but unexpectedly, the comers were not good, and the pirate guerrillas had to hang out in the Devil's Triangle for almost 10 days. At this moment, even a fool knew that the target of the pirate guerrilla group was him, one of the 7 Marshalseas. Yes, Lord Moria. A bandaged zombie said respectfully to Moria, during this time, the pirate guerrillas have killed many of us, which is simply abominable. Damn. Moonlight Moria flashed a wisp of anger on her cheek. To be fair, he didn't want to mess with the pirate guerrillas, although the newspaper of the Newsbird could not reach the Devil's Triangle Sea, but as one of the 7 Marshalseas, Moonlight Moria had other sources of intelligence, so it was very clear that this pirate guerrilla group was very difficult to deal with. After all, a former admiral of the naval headquarters, a substitute general, a vice admiral of the naval headquarters, such a lineup, definitely not easy to deal with. Yet, that's all. Before he became the 7 Marshalseas, he had a reward of up to 320 million Baileys, and he had even been to the New World to challenge one of the 4 emperors of King's Landing, the 100 Beasts Kaido. So, despite some headaches, Moonlight Moria decided to teach the pirate guerrillas a lesson. Lord Moria, just don't do anything, let's kill them. If you can get their shadow, it will definitely help you. The bandaged zombie was also obviously a little angry, too. Just kidding, our Moria boss is the 7 Marshalseas under the King of the World Government, a legitimate organization recognized by the Navy. What do you pirate guerrillas want to do? Good. Go and gather the 3 freaks. The words are not finished. Moonlight Moria's voice suddenly stopped, and it seemed as if he sensed something, and his look changed suddenly, flashing violently to the side. Lord Moria. And the bandaged zombie looked at the flashing Moonlight Moria, obviously a little confused. I don't know how Lord Moria ran away. Boom. In the next instant, a deafening roar sounded. Before the bandaged zombie could react, it was bombarded by a terrifying wave of explosive energy. Affected by this, the whole horror, 3-masted sailboat shook slightly. Pirate guerrilla. Look at the falling castle. Moonlight Moria, who had been evacuated to a gloomy cemetery, was blindfolded and really angry and wanted to vomit blood. Special, am I mistaken? The door of the Terror Trima schooner is wide open, just waiting for you pirate guerrillas to come in. The men did not come in, but they took the lead in attacking. It's tolerable and intolerable. Airplanes. Almost without much hesitation, Moonlight Moria controlled the shadows one by one and disappeared in an instant. At the same time, on the deck of a giant mech warship, the power of the I-19 plasma cannon is okay, and when I have time, I will upgrade the I-19 plasma cannon to the I-20 plasma cannon, and I can definitely blast the terrifying 3-masted sailing ship out of a big hole with one shot. Looking at the terrifying three-masted sailboat that just violently shook a few times, Emperor Tong ate a lollipop, obviously some dissatisfaction. It seems like something is coming out. Yet, it was at this time that Zefa, Peach Rabbit, Zefa, Bin's, and Ein's brows were all frowning. Silently, suddenly, I saw a Peach Rabbit without any expression. Between the electric flints, he pulled out the short knife from his waist and threw it straight ahead, at the entrance of the terrifying three-masted schooner. Poof. A piercing sound sounded. Only a piercing sound could be heard from the entrance of the terrifying three-masted sailboat. Immediately afterward, a person whose body seemed to be transparent revealed the prototype from the state of invisibility, and on his shoulder, there was a short knife with a Peach Rabbit inserted in it. Moonlight Moria's men, Absalom, one of the three freaks. Looking at the gorgeously dressed and frightening long-haired man who revealed the prototype, Luo Lei said softly, "How do you want to die? What?" Listen to this sentence. The pupils of Absalom's eyes shrank slightly. In fact, after the explosion occurred, he wanted to stealthily come out to check the situation, and wherever he knew that he had not yet approached, he was discovered, and he was stabbed by the Peach Rabbit. All right. It is also Absalom himself who is stupid and accustomed to being a blessing in the Devil's Triangle Sea. Don't you know that Luo Lei, Zefa, Peach Rabbit and others are all domineering? No, I don't want to die yet. Absalom endured the pain, pulled out the short knife on his shoulder, and suddenly bent his knees, and while unleashing his transparent ability, he flew towards the darkness behind him. Shuriken shadow-splitting technique. Look at the fleeing Absalom. Luo Lei snorted coldly and threw a huge shuriken forward. Swish. The moment the huge shuriken was thrown out, tens of thousands of shurikens were split, and they came out like a fierce storm. After a few seconds, a scream rang out. In the face of the strange attack of the shuriken shadow-splitting technique, Absalom wanted to hide, but there was nothing he could do, and he could only be punched into a plug by the shuriken in an instant. Bang! From afar, the perception of the dead can no longer die. Absalom. As if thinking of something, Lorelei shook hands in the air, and a coffin-shaped piece of wood suddenly emerged from the ground and loaded Absalom into it. Episode 35. This is a one-stop service for killing people and collecting corpses. Kill Absalom in seconds, but also to collect his body. Lord Luo Lei is indeed kind and kind, such a heart, let me wait to admire. Absalom is also lucky. Looking at Absalom, who was put into a wooden coffin, from afar, on the deck of the giant mech warship, some of the crew members of the pirate guerrilla group had a look of shock in their eyes, and they couldn't help but let out one uproar after another. No way, although the Devil's Triangle is foggy, but with the little visibility, they could still see that the dead Absalom had been put into a wooden coffin. That move was so powerful. Mamoto blinked and couldn't help but sigh. Ninjutsu is also amazing, it's really magical. Ein also nodded, and a wisp of amazement appeared on his face, so that Absalom was a capable person, and as a result, he was killed in a second before he appeared. Again, that sentence. It's not that Absalom is too weak, it's that lore is too strong. Awesome. Zefa smiled slightly with satisfaction. Before he could shoot, Absalom was killed. At the same time, ding. Superman is a transparent fruit-capable person. Absalom can redeem 300,000 lottery points, whether the host redeems it or not. A crisp voice sounded in Lore's head. Listen to this voice. The corners of Luo Lei's mouth were unconsciously slightly cocked. He was not as noble as others thought. Collecting the body of Absalom was just to cover up and use Absalom waste. Now it seems that the effect is not bad, and the 300,000 lottery points have arrived. Redeem it. Luo Lei simply and neatly ordered in a silent voice. Ding. Superman transparent fruit ability. Absalom successfully recovered, and the host harvested 300,000 lottery points. Here it comes. In vain, at this moment, Luo Lei's sight and smell of domineering seemed to sense something, and as soon as his eyes turned, he looked at the gate of the terrifying three-masted sailboat. Moonlight Moria is coming. Such as Zefa, Peach Rabbit, Iron, Bin's are also a glance. Bang. 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 Footsteps rang out. In the mist, zombies and skeletons began to gather at the gate of the terrifying three-masted sailboat. Directly in front of these zombies stood Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 martial seas under the Tall King, and 2 other strange people, Hogabak and Perona. Pirate guerrillas, how dare you kill my people? You guys really are damned. Looking at Absalom, who was put into the wooden coffin, Moonlight Moria was really furious to the extreme, perhaps too angry, and a wisp of blood had appeared in his eyes. Deceive people too much. It's really deceiving people too much. First he shelled his terrifying three-masted sailboat. Now he had killed Absalom, one of the 3 monsters under his command, which was completely without taking his Moonlight Moria in his eyes. Shadow horn gun. Maybe it was the anger that carried me out. Moonlight Moria, after a furious roar, suddenly took a cold drink, and with a slight squeeze of his right hand, the black shadow turned into a spear and slammed into Zefa, who was standing on the giant mech. Someone else he was not familiar with, but this former Admiral Zefa, Moonlight Moria, is very familiar. Lord Moria. Looking at Moria, who was angry and attacking, Hogabak and Perona, one of the three strange people, looked slightly different, trying to stop it, but realized that it was too late. This guy handed it over to me. In the face of the attack of Moonlight Moria, the Tong Emperor, who was eating a lollipop, snorted coldly, stepped on the moon step with a small school bag, and flew out. Protective umbrella. Rumble. Accompanied by a crashing roar, Emperor Tong in midair took out a small umbrella, and after opening it, it turned into an energy shield, blocking the dark shadow horn gun. The next moment, Emperor Tong threw away the protective umbrella. He took out a gun in the shape of a pencil case, and fired at Moria in the moonlight. Damn. Shadow Warrior. Facing the pencil missile in the sky, Moonlight Moria looked a little ugly, and then his mind moved, the whole person suddenly disappeared, and a shadow doppelganger exactly like him appeared in the same place. Bang. Bang. Pencil missiles hit Moonlight Moria's shadow body, directly bombarding the shadow body into a plug. It turned into a large number of black bats, and counterattacked towards the Tong Emperor at a faster speed. Forget it, I'm not playing. In the face of the bat that made a strange sound, Tong Di grinned and said softly, fearless giant combination. Rumble. A loud roar rang out. In the next instant, a huge mech giant was suspended in midair, and Tong Di appeared in the cockpit of the dreadnought giant, controlling the dreadnought giant mech to launch an attack. Hot shot. Whoops. Without any warning, the dauntless giant took out a flamethrower and directly launched an ultra-high temperature attack. As a result, all the bats were drowned in a sea of fire, emitting a terrible scream, and they were instantly extinguished by the ashes of the burning. You see this scene. Hiding next to Moonlight Moria had some silliness. This Tong Emperor, open and hang without a word. How did you still make such a mech giant? How can this be fought? As a man who has fought with the 100 Beasts Kaido, Moonlight Moria is also a fierce character, but in the face of Emperor Tong's fearless giant, there were some hairs scratching at once. Episode 36. As a man who has fought with the 100 Beasts Kaido, Moonlight Moria is also a fierce character, but in the face of Emperor Tong's fearless giant, there were some hairs scratching at once. That's right, there is some scratching hair. No way. Somehow, in the face of the nameless generation of the Tong Emperor, it actually made him can't help but think back to the fear of being dominated by the 100 Beasts Kaido. What's more, on the deck of the giant mech warship, but how many terrifying guys didn't shoot? This is especially a little egg pain. Reckless. In the next instant, Moonlight Moria's eyes flashed a look of panic. You're distracted. At this time, Emperor Tong didn't care so much, controlling the huge machine fist of the dauntless giant, and actually launched a heavy blow to Moonlight Moria from midair. Shadow Warrior. In the face of Emperor Tong's attack, Moria's pupils contracted violently, and he could only exchange places with the shadow again. Boom. After a few seconds, with a roaring sound, the huge fist of the dauntless giant exploded Moria's shadow body, and the terrifying power spread to the ground, causing the terrifying three-masted sailing ship to shake several times. Lord Moria. Or shall we? Hogabak and Perona, one of the three strange people, saw the situation and their looks changed and changed. Just when the two wanted to make a move, they found that at some point, Luo Lei had appeared in front of them, and the breath locked on them firmly. Wait a minute. Something is wrong. Look at the sudden appearance of Lore. One of the three freaks, Hogabak and Perona, are a bit confused, because they obviously saw Luo Lei, still standing on the deck of the giant mech warship. How come there's one more here? What's wrong? Don't move. In the face of Hogabak and Perona's doubts, Lori put his hands on his chest and said softly, look at how Moonlight Moria was tortured and killed. You. Hogabak took a deep breath, smiled coldly, and asked, what do you pirate gorillas really want to do? You want to know? A curvature appeared at the corner of Lore's mouth. Yes. The art of cuttings. Pity. Hogabak hadn't finished speaking. A sharp piece of wood was inserted into his body, and then, before he could react, the wood continued to grow bifurcated inside him. Poof. Poof. It was the sound of wood piercing the body. As the target of the attack, Hogabak's eyes were wide open, and his cheeks were filled with fear and disbelief. Nemas, did he just die? Are these logs still taking root in his body? Ah. Looking at Hogabak, who was covered with branches, Perona covered her mouth and screamed, perhaps too frightened to be directly frightened, and fell to the ground. Aha. Look at Perona, who fell to the ground. Luo Lei shook his head a few times. He hadn't even shot yet. He was frightened? At the same time, giant mech warship watches another Luo Lei kills one of the three freaks in a second. Hogabak, Zefa, Ein, Peach Rabbit, Bins, and a group of pirate guerrilla members drop their jaws to the ground, revealing a stunned look. This. Among them, Peach Rabbit couldn't help but rub his eyes, obviously suspecting that he had seen the ghost, so much so that her sight and smell of domineering spirit also deliberately perceived, and it turned out that whether it was Luo Lei on the ship or Luo Lei who killed Hogwak, it seemed to be true. This is a wooden doppelganger of mine. Sensing that everyone was looking at the monster-like gaze, Luo Lei explained a little wordlessly. Oh. Listen to this sentence. Zefa, Ein, Peach Rabbit, Bins, and a group of pirate guerrilla members revealed their sudden realization, and could only blame this on magical ninjutsu. At the same time, Moonlight Moria, who had just dodged a blow from the Tong Emperor in the field, obviously saw that Hogwak, one of the three strange people, was killed by the second, and Perona was frightened and fainted. No. I must not be able to do the same thing as I did. Affected by this, Moonlight Moria gritted his teeth, glanced at the fearless giant mech, gave a loud sigh, and directly took out his strongest means, shadow gathering ground. Swish. Aha. The voice has not fallen. Countless dense shadows poured in from all over the terrifying three-masted schooner. Then, Moonlight Moria centered on himself and began to frantically devour these shadows, making his volume grow higher and higher. It eventually turned into a black giant that was more than 10 meters high. Go and die. I'm not who I was anymore. After devouring nearly 1,000 shadows, Moonlight Moria, after transforming into a black giant, endured without losing his mind, let out a roar, and then punched the fearless giant in the past. Click. Due to the power of the fist, as a result, there was a crack in the air that was visible to the naked eye. Unfortunately, the ideal is very full, the reality is very bone, and Moonlight Moria is facing the Tong Emperor who does not play cards according to common sense. Billion-volt shock. A cold voice sounded, only to see a wisp of visible to the naked eye around the fearless giant, so powerful that even the air exploded in an instant. You. See this scene. Moonlight Moria, who incarnated as a black giant, was about to vomit blood. Wasn't it a punch? How did you change the way of attack? There was no way, he was going to lose his mind, and in desperation, he could only control his huge body and rush into the electric current. Cracking sound. Crackle. A series of electric explosions sounded, and in full view of everyone, Moonlight Moria's huge body began to shake violently, just like a sheep mad, dancing in the same place. The defense is still quite strong? Poof. The next moment, just when Emperor Tong still wanted to increase his strength, a large number of shadows poured out of the mouth of Moonlight Moria. Finally, when Moonlight Moria restored his original body, his body was suddenly scorched by a strong electric current, turning into a cloud of inky black coke. Episode 37. In the end, when Moonlight Moria restored his original body, his body was suddenly scorched by a strong electric current, turning into a cloud of inky black coke. It's not interesting. Look at the vulnerable Moonlight Moria. The Tong Emperor, who was sitting in the dauntless giant mech, couldn't help but skim his lips, obviously not having fun yet. Just now, he had just cast one of the tricks of the billion-volt shock, and there were still a few tricks that had not yet been cast, and Moria was not able to do it. Cough. Cough. At this time, Moonlight Moria, whose body had been scorched, still had his last breath, and there were already some vicious cheeks, which had become unrecognizable and could not bear to look at it directly. Lost. He lost very thoroughly, even if the shadow-gathering place is used. In the face of Emperor Tong, he was still so powerless, just like when he challenged the 100 Beasts Kaido, he was crushed by the 100 Beasts Kaido. Moonlight Moria, you can go with confidence. Aha. The next moment, as soon as Luo Lei flashed his body, he appeared next to Moonlight Moria's charred body and said indifferently, "You are not the first, and you will not be the last." Aha. Aha. Listen to this sentence. Moonlight Moria, who was paralyzed on the ground like a pile of coke, writhed a little, trying to say something, but in the end he couldn't say anything. Forget it, help you collect the body. Looks like it's going to die or not. Moonlight Moria, who had only half a life left. Luo Lei sneered and shook his head, and with a slight squeeze of his right hand, a wooden coffin emerged from the ground and loaded Moonlight Moria into it. Ding. Captain of the Moonlight Pirate Regiment, one of the 7 Marshalseas under the King, Shadow Fruit ability. Moonlight Moria can redeem 600,000 lottery points, whether the host can redeem it. Listen to the voice coming from your ears. The corners of Lore's mouth unconsciously appeared a smile. This Moonlight Moria was indeed one of the 7 Marshalseas, and was actually able to redeem 600,000 evolution points, which was twice that of Abu Sarum. As for why not hand over one of the 3 freaks, Hogwak, to the system for redemption? Of course, that is because the system does not want Hogwak. In the words of the system, this Hogaback is not a demon fruit ability, the strength is not good, only a bad medical skill, there is no recovery value. Redeem it. Luo Lei simply and neatly ordered in a silent voice. Ding. Captain of the Moonlight Pirate Regiment, one of the 7 martial seas under the king, shadow fruit ability Moonlight Moria successfully recovered, and the host harvested 600,000 lottery points. Now there are a total of 900,000 lottery points. At the same time, bang. Bang. After Moonlight Moria died, the zombies and skeletons that had gathered at the gate of the terrifying 3-masted sailing ship, as if they had lost some kind of control, began to collapse to the ground in no particular order, like cutting wheat. Is this the end? That's it? Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 martial seas, is also too unbeaten. We don't have a chance to shoot, we have to pick up the mess. See this scene. On the deck of a giant mech warship, many members of the pirate guerrilla group could not help but show their helplessness. It was perhaps the easiest battle they had ever experienced, just watching the battle in silence, watching the Moonlight Moria being tortured and killed, and cleaning up the mess. Now, one of the 7 martial seas of Moonlight Moria was killed. They could all have expected that when the news came out, the naval headquarters and even the whole sea would shake slightly. After all, in the case that the world government recognizes the legitimate status of the 7 martial seas under the king, the pirate guerrillas did the opposite, taking the first kill of the 7 martial seas under the king, and no matter how you look at it, it was a big thing that shook the sea. It's done. On the deck, Zefa stretched his loins with a relaxed face and ordered, Bins, wait until you take someone to take the Moonlight Pirate Regiment to a good scrape. Ein, you go and get Perona, one of the 3 weirdos, she's still useful. Peach Rabbit, you report the situation to the Navy headquarters. Yes, okay, Teacher Zefa. Swish. The next moment, 2 cracking sounds sounded, and Bins and Ein, who had received the order, flashed their bodies and went to carry out the order. Only the pretty face of the Peach Rabbit showed a hesitant look, and there seemed to be some entanglement and trepidation in his heart. Teacher Zefa, is it a report from 1510? After a few seconds, Peach Rabbit took a deep breath, his eyes must have been, or he couldn't help but ask. Nothing good to say, she was sent by the Navy to the nails of the pirate guerrillas, but... After seeing Luo Lei's ability, especially after drinking the super god water, Peach Rabbit had some touches in her heart. She did not want to be a nail, but wanted to become an official member of the pirate guerrilla. Little Peach Rabbit, I know what you're thinking, report to 1510. It seems to see the entanglement of the Peach Rabbit. Zefa took out a cigar, and Meizizi took a sip before he said pointedly, we, the pirate guerrillas, still need the Navy to spread the news that we have killed the 7 martial seas under the king? Yes, Teacher Zefa. Listen to this sentence. Peach Rabbit's eyes lit up slightly, and he understood in an instant. Now they are in the Devil's Triangle Sea, although they have destroyed one of the 7 martial seas of Moonlight Moria, but... I don't know how long to wait for the news to spread. It is better to report to the Navy headquarters. In that way, the news of the killing of Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 martial seas, would naturally spread throughout the entire sea at an extremely fast speed. Episode 38. When I think about it, Peach Rabbit took a deep breath, and there was no scruple. In front of Teacher Zefa, he took out the telephone worm and dialed the phone of the Warring States Marshal. At the same time, Naval Headquarters, Marin Fando. After the pirate guerrillas left, the Sengoku didn't care about the pirate guerrillas. Anyway, there is the nail of the headquarters Lieutenant General and Substitute General, Peach Rabbit. Once the pirate guerrilla has any excessive behavior, he will know at the first time and respond to it. Warring States, why hasn't there been news of the pirate guerrillas? Directly ahead, Kapu sat paralyzed on the sofa, and after snapping his nostrils with his little thumb, he went to pick up the shanbei again, and Meizizi ate it. Carp, can you please not be so disgusting? Seeing this scene, Sengoku frowned and couldn't help but say, after leaving the naval headquarters, the pirate guerrillas did not take the initiative to report their whereabouts. Oh. Kapu shrugged indifferently and said, it looks like the pirate guerrillas have already planned it. It should be. Sengoku thought for a moment before he couldn't help but shake his head, and then picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip of hot tea. For the pirate guerrillas, he still has some worries, but... Now the arrow has to be sent on the string. No matter what, the pirate guerrillas are going to fight the pirates, which is also beneficial to the Navy and the world government. Purr. Yet, it was at this time that the golden telephone worm on the Sengoku table suddenly rang. Huh? Sengoku picked up the phone worm with some surprise and said in a positive voice, this is the naval headquarters, I am Marshal Sengoku. Sengoku Marshal. I'm a Peach Rabbit. From the end of the telephone worm came the slightly serious voice of the Peach Rabbit. Oh, Peach Rabbit? The voice has not fallen. Sengoku couldn't help but show a smile and subconsciously said, is there something wrong? Or did the pirate guerrillas encounter some difficulties? Nothing was in trouble. On the other end of the phone worm, Peach Rabbit said crisply and neatly, "We have just killed one of the 7 Martial Seas, the captain of the Moonlight Pirate Regiment, Moonlight Moria, and are now counting the harvest in Moria's old lair." What? I heard the voice of the Peach Rabbit of the telephone worm. Sengoku was obviously a little stunned, and after reacting, he couldn't help but make sure, Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, is dead? That's right. The end of the phone bug, Peach Rabbit said crisply, even the body was collected by Luo Lei. In an instant, Sengoku's look was a little stiff. Nima's, he was just saying that the pirate guerrillas did not take the initiative to report their whereabouts, and now it is good, as soon as the pirate guerrillas report their whereabouts, they are a king bomb. Be aware, is this the 7 Martial Seas of the King Moonlight Moria appointed by the world government? Now, the 7 Martial Seas under the King Moonlight Moria are dead, or they have been wiped out by the pirate guerrillas, and there are some egg pains in this particular. Absolutely, Sengoku as admirals, even after experiencing the wind and waves, he quickly returned to his senses, adjusted his mentality, and said, since Moonlight Moria is dead, it proves that his strength is too weak to qualify as the 7 Martial Seas, and I will remember the pirate guerrilla team and recruit a new king under the 7 Martial Seas. Okay, Marshal of the Warring States, I'll hang up first. Pity, just the moment the phone worm hung up, somehow, Luo Lei's light and breezy voice still came over. Peach Rabbit, let the Warring States find some powerful pirates to be the 7 Martial Seas, so that our pirate guerrillas can have a greater sense of accomplishment. Purr. Purr. This is the sound of the phone worm being hung up. As for the Warring States Marshal, his face changed and changed, especially when he heard the last words of Luo Lei. He really wanted to vomit blood. What is called finding some powerful pirates to be the king of the 7 Martial Seas? Please, we didn't recruit the 7 Martial Seas under the king to let you kill them. You do this. It's hard for our navy? Things seem to be getting a little complicated? After a moment, Sengoku took a deep breath, looked at Kapu, and said, Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas, is dead, and the Moonlight Pirate Regiment should also be destroyed. I heard that. Kapu ate a large bite of shanbei, and his expression was rare and somewhat solemn. The pirate guerrillas chose Moonlight Moria for the first target, which is really surprising. Yeah. Sengoku shook his head in amazement and said, the sea is starting to shake again. Oh. Kapu shrugged indifferently and picked up shanbei maize and ate it. You. Watching Kapu return to the appearance of hanging Erlang Dang, Sengoku frowned, and finally said in a deep voice, I will let people inform the whole sea of Moonlight Moria's death. Nothing good to say, since the Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, was dead. Then there is no use value, so the Sengoku can only calculate and use the death of Moonlight Moria to reflect the power of the navy. That afternoon, through the Navy's propaganda channels, the news that Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, had been killed by the pirate guerrillas spread throughout the sea with lightning speed. Suddenly, countless people above the sea were moved and shocked by it. After all, the 7 Martial Seas under the king are the 7 sea thieves recognized by the world government, with catastrophic destructive forces and huge combat power comparable to the country. It can be said that only pirates who are well-known or powerful enough to frighten everyone are eligible to be elected as the 7 Martial Seas under the king, and every 7 Martial Seas under the king, even in the second half of the Great Passage, has a certain reputation. The result? Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, was quietly destroyed by the pirate guerrilla group. The pirate guerrillas completed the feat of killing the 7 Martial Seas for the first time. Episode 39, the result? Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, was quietly destroyed by the pirate guerrilla group. The pirate guerrillas completed the feat of killing the 7 Martial Seas for the first time. Shock. Incredibly shocking. Affected by this, the pirate guerrillas rose to fame in the sea in the blink of an eye. In the past, many forces believed that the pirate guerrillas were just Zefa formed to make a model, but now it is good, Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas, is dead. This also proves from the side that the pirate guerrillas are coming for the real thing. Airplanes. Suddenly, many sea thieves on the sea have some scalp tingling. After all, the pirate guerrillas even dared to kill Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, so was it not stressless to kill these sea thieves? So, the situation on the sea has changed somewhat. It used to be just a dark tide, now it's a choppy. Absolutely, the least of them reacted to the 4 emperors in the second half of King's Landing's Great Passage. After hearing the news that the pirate guerrillas had killed Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 Martial Seas under the king, whether it is the Whitebeard Pirate Regiment, the 100 Beast Pirate Regiment, or the Red-Haired Pirate Regiment, the Big Mom Pirate Regiment has no waves, and even some want to laugh, or do not put the so-called pirate guerrilla group in the eyes. To put it mildly, even Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 martial seas, in the eyes of the 4 Emperor's pirates, it's just a slightly more powerful ant. Now that this ant has been killed, the 4 Emperor's pirate regiment is just a simple pleasure, not worrying about the pirate guerrillas at all. After all, they are the 4 Emperor's pirates of King's Landing. A pirate guerrilla is not enough to look at unless the navy can attack the whole army. However, the 4 Emperor's pirates are nothing to react to, but the same as the 7 martial seas under the king, Cork or Mihawk, Bartholomew Bear, Poya Hancock, Don Quixote da Flamingo, Sherpin, and Shah Crookdal, but there is some anger, and in addition to the anger, there are some small horrors, because the death of Moonlight Moria made them have a feeling of rabbit death and fox sorrow, and no one knows whether the butcher knife of the pirate guerrilla will hit their own bodies. Dressrosa, inside the royal palace, damn, the pirate guerrillas are here for real? Don Quixote da Flamingo, one of the 7 martial seas, looked at the intelligence in his hand and roared violently. What exactly does the navy and the world government want to do? Doesn't the 7 martial seas under the king already belong to a legitimate organization? Didn't expect that. Really did not think of that. The pirate guerrillas did not shoot if they did not shoot, and they destroyed a 7 martial seas as soon as they struck. If this allowed the pirate guerrillas to wreak havoc in the sea, wouldn't none of the 7 martial seas under the king be able to escape? Dover, the explanation given by the navy is that Moonlight Moria is too weak to be worthy of the 7 martial seas under the king, so he was erased by the pirate guerrillas. Directly ahead, Tori Pole, who was slimy and sticky, looked a little frightened, and carefully said a word. Furofer. Furofurin, listen to this sentence. Doflamingo's body was constantly shaking, and he couldn't help but let out his own unique laughter, growling, Moonlight Moria's strength is not good, but the good villain is also one of the 7 martial seas, and the navy really has a wishful thinking. Very good. It was really good. At this point, Doflamingo's look was a little distorted. Nima's, the navy wants to be and wants to build a Tory arch. On the one hand, recruiting the sea thief to be the king of the 7 martial seas, on the other hand, not stopping the actions of the pirate guerrillas, is too special and shameless. Dover. Looking at Doflamingo in a state of madness, Tory Pole did not even dare to breathe in the atmosphere, licked his own snot, and then lowered his head trembling. Pass on the order, pay close attention to the movements of the pirate guerrillas, and report them in time as soon as the wind blows. The next moment, Doflamingo stood up, opened his arms, and commanded in a cold voice, this time, I have come to see who the second target of the pirate guerrillas is. Yes. Tory Pole nodded respectfully. And in the first half of the Great Passage, Alabaston, Baroque Working Society, one of the 7 martial seas, the sand crocodile, Clockdoll was smoking a cigar and looking at the newspaper in his hand. Pity. When he saw that Moonlight Moria, who was also one of the 7 martial seas, had been killed by the pirate guerrillas, the sand crocodile Clockdoll froze, and the cigar in his mouth was not very fragrant for an instant. Just kidding. Even Moonlight Moria was killed. If the pirate guerrillas were to find him in trouble, it seems to be the past, right? Damn, Zefa, that old undead guy in lore, what the hell are you trying to do? A moment later, the sand crocodile Crookdale threw his cigar on the ground, spat out a mouthful of white smoke, and clenched his fists with gritted teeth. On the surface, the sand crocodile, Clockdoll is still very calm, but if you look closely, you will find that the hand of the sand crocodile Clockdoll is trembling inadvertently, and it is obvious that the heart is not at peace. No way. For the pirate guerrillas, sand crocodile Clockdale was initially out of sight, even if it is known that the pirate guerrillas have high-end combat forces such as the former Admiral Zefa, the new Vice Admiral Rowley of the Admiral Headquarters, and the Vice Admiral and Substitute General of the Admiral, Peach Rabbit. After all, he was one of the 7 martial seas under the king, a man with official status. When official status no longer had the effect of a life preserver, the sand crocodile Clockdoll realized that he seemed to be exposed to the sun, and some of them were too taken for granted. Episode 40, When official status no longer had the effect of a life preserver, the sand crocodile Clockdoll realized that he seemed to be exposed to the sun, and some of them were too taken for granted. No, I can't sit still. I don't know how long it took. One of the 7 martial seas, the sand crocodile, Clockdoll slowly stood up, his cheeks showing a cold color. Whether or not the pirate guerrillas would cause him trouble, he had to prepare in advance, and when the time came, if he encountered a surprise attack from the pirate guerrillas, he could retreat safely even if he could not win the battle. Anyway, he was to be in Alabaston to get information about Pluto, one of the 3 ancient weapons. At that time, as long as you find one of the 3 ancient weapons of Pluto, what pirate guerrillas, are all things that Pluto can solve with one shot. Again, in another room of the Baroque Working Society, Nicole Robin, who has the title of Son of the Devil, is looking at the newspaper in his hand with a sluggish look. As a former Oraha survivor, the so-called Son of the Devil, She was well aware of the power of the navy and of the behemoth of the world government that had ruled for more than 800 years. Now, Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 martial seas under the king, has been killed by the newly formed pirate guerrillas. Doesn't that mean that the boss he follows, the sand crocodile Clockdoll, one of the 7 martial seas, can also kill himself at any time? No. After half a ring, Nicole Robin sighed and muttered, I'm going to start looking for a way back. Over the years, Nicole Robin went around looking for work to feed herself, but because of his identity and the amazing amount of the bounty, he was betrayed and abandoned by others several times, so much so that she hides in the underworld to escape the pursuit of the navy, and survives by betraying others. Now, the sand crocodile who has become one of the 7 martial seas, Clockdoll's men, but has encountered the naval guerrillas who have begun to fight the pirates. Her life, it's really bitter. At the same time, Daughter Island Amazon Lily, as the name suggests, this is an island dominated by the female fighting clan 9 Serpents. Usually, the women on this island are bred as warriors, carrying all the household and labor on their shoulders, and even giving birth to girls after pregnancy. And right now, inside a palace in the central area of Hydra Island, Daughter Island, the emperor of the Amazon Lily Kingdom, and also the captain of the 9 Serpents pirates, known as the Princess of One Piece, Poyahan Cook is looking at the newspaper in his hand with a sad face. Snake G. This pirate guerrilla has come badly and has already killed Moonlight Moria, one of the 7 martial seas, only to see a short, wrinkled old woman with a worried face. Her name is Gloriosa, also known as Grandma Tsubasa, and she is the former emperor of the Amazon Lily who rescued the 3 sisters of Poyahan Cook who were killed. Listen to this sentence. Poyahan Cook casually threw away the newspaper in his hand, and a pair of eyes revealed a ghostly look. The whaling family doesn't know what to do. The pirate guerrillas are too strong, really want to attack the Hydra Island. The concubine can only use the beauty meter. When it comes to this, Poyahan Cook also gently cocked his legs, raised his head proudly, and said with great narcissism, even if the pirate guerrillas come, I will definitely be forgiven, because the mourning family. It's so beautiful. Airplanes. Suddenly, Poyahan Cook, who has the title of the world's first beauty, exudes an atmosphere that cannot be described in words. See this scene. Even the elderly mother-in-law, the peach heart unconsciously appeared in her eyes, and her breathing began to become rapid. Snake. Lord Snakeheim. After a few seconds, maybe it's that I'm often with Poyahan Cook, with a little bit of immunity, Grandma Kue quickly returned to her senses, and couldn't help but rebuke, I'm discussing the right thing with you, why are you so willful? The pirate guerrillas are not fuel-efficient lamps, and they also have the former Admiral Zefa, the new Admiral Roar, the new Admiral of the Admiral Lore, the Admiral and Admiral of the Admiral Peach Rabbit, and you will not be confused. Shut up. Before the words fell, Poyahan Cook's look changed suddenly, and he looked at his mother-in-law with some impatience, and he pouted very confidently, the whaling family knows how to do it. After saying this, Poyahan Cook showed an incomparably narcissistic expression again. You. Suddenly, Grandma Chi helplessly covered her forehead and opened her mouth to say something, but she didn't say anything. What else can I say? Faced with the extremely narcissistic Poyahan Cook, she can only hope that the pirate guerrillas will not come to Hydra Island.